India and Iran are both lashing out against Pakistan after separate terrorist attacks in each country this week. This morning, India announced a 200% tariff on Pakistani imports. Public anger is still simmering over a suicide bombing that killed 44 paramilitary police officers on Thursday. The attack happened in Indian-administered Kashmir. Militant group Jaish-e-Mohammed claimed responsibility for the attack. Pakistan, where the group is based, denied any involvement. The bombing was the deadliest attack on Indian forces in the disputed region in decades. Iran echoed India's complaint, saying Pakistan would pay a heavy price for harboring terrorists. Jaish-al-Adl militants, who are also linked to Pakistan, killed 27 of Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards in a suicide bombing also this week. Now, these are pictures of the public funerals that were held this weekend. For more on this, let's turn to Kamran Bukhari. He is the Director of Strategy and Programs at the Center for Global Policy in Washington and the National Security Foreign Policy Specialist at the University of Ottawa. Kamran, lots to break down there. Let's begin with a familiar tension that has been there for more than 7 decades. We've got India and Pakistan vying over Kashmir, and you have this very deadly attack take place. What do you make of how India is responding? Because they really are taking a hard line.
Yeah, I think that we are in a different place this time around as opposed to every other prior incident. We had the Mumbai attacks, we had the Parliament attack in 2001. But this time, I think the situation is a bit different. And it's because we have a different government, a very right-wing Hindu nationalist government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi that is facing elections in less than 2 months. So there is a domestic political imperative on the government to respond with vigor, to say the least.
So let's talk about Pakistan and Iran then, because we don't often necessarily hear about the disputes between these two neighbors. So what do you make of Iran's hard line?
It isn't the first time that this is happening between Iran and Pakistan. Anybody watching that border has seen this happen before. It's interesting that this time around the attack on the IRGC troops, as well as the attack on the Indian paramilitary forces, happened more or less around the same time, and is timed more or less closely with the visit of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to Pakistan. They just wrapped up a presser there with Prime Minister Imran Khan. But to get back to Iran, I think that there is a situation where Jaish al-Adl, which is a Sunni Islamist ethnically Baloch group fighting the Islamic Republic of Iran, has sanctuaries in Balochistan province of Pakistan. And this has been an ongoing thing. The Iranians have been pressing on the Pakistanis for many years to crack down on these elements. And the Pakistanis have been unable and or unwilling to do so. And that's why I think that Iran is also under pressure to react strongly, given the pressure on it in the Middle East and generally from the United States.
Let's talk about Pakistan's response, because whether you look to the west or to the east, its neighbors are saying you're going to pay for this. They are unequivocal in that they believe Pakistani government and military forces have some hand in the attacks. Pakistan, of course, denies this. What do you think Pakistan will do?
Well, I think that the Pakistanis have a standard operating procedure, which is that towards India, they say, look, this is an indigenous thing that is happening there. Don't blame us for, you guys not being able to manage your situation on your side of Kashmir. So that's sort of the standard public relations rhetoric that comes out of Islamabad. At the same time, I think that as in past episodes like this, the Pakistanis are going to rely on the United States to mediate. With Iran, I think it's a bit more bilateral. The Pakistanis can't rely on the Americans to come in, so they'll have to deal with this on their own. But mind you that in September of 2016, the Indians did what they claimed to be a surgical strike in response to a similar attack. And the Iranians, a couple of years ago, if I'm not wrong, also did a cross-border operation striking at Jaish al-Adl facilities. So if they do so this time around, it's not going to be unprecedented.
Kamran, you sort of hinted at this already, but for those who would say, well, this is an issue in the Middle East or it's an issue in South Asia, it's a Muslim world issue, what are the larger international implications if we've got tensions between Pakistan and both India and Iran?
Well, let's look at the larger implications with regards to Iran first. So the United States is applying pressure on Iran and to isolate it, to basically roll back the influence that it has gained in the Middle East because of the state meltdown underway for many years in the Arab world. And especially after President Assad's forces, backed by Iran, have won the civil war, more or less, in Syria. And so the Americans, for the Iranians to react like this means that that pressure isn't working, or at least the Iranians are coming back to counter that pressure from the United States. Mind you that Iran is under pressure from Israelis in Syria, but they can't strike back against Israel because there's a bigger cost to pay there militarily. Here, they're calculating that this is not going to be a high cost, and there's a lot of geopolitical dividends to reap. With regards to the India-Pakistan thing, they really upset the U.S. efforts to negotiate with the Taliban, because then the United States comes in and the Pakistanis need help, and the Pakistanis will drag their feet. The Americans will try to put pressure on the Pakistanis to extract maximum concessions. So this is a very complicated chessboard in which multiple issues are being affected.